People run around going, it's so hard to buy rent houses. Really? There's a government program specifically for you to buy 10 rent houses. They want you to do it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Total Wealth Academy video podcast. I call it that because we also have our radio show podcast, and you can find both of those at totalwealthacademy.com. We do a radio show 4 or 5 days a week, and then I try to do 1, 2, or 3 video podcasts every week, every couple of weeks. The goal of these podcasts, the goal of the radio show, is to encourage you to start investing in real estate and get some real estate into your portfolio, because 9 out of 10 millionaires in the United States used real estate to become millionaires. So it is an extremely effective tool, but there's a lot of fear that people have about it. And I hope that these podcasts help allay some of those fears, encourage you, convince you that you can do it, things like that. Today, I want to talk about something that is dangerous, and I fall victim to it. Everyone falls victim to it. It's just something that we as humans have a tendency to do. But it's a thing called procrastination. Procrastination, putting off what you know you must do. And this is the thief of your life. It really is. And it leads to massive, painful regret. Massive, painful regret. I see people, I'll give you an example. I had one lady who was 40 when she started listening to my radio show. 20 years later, she came in and enrolled. She was 60. She procrastinated for 20 years. And you say, well, that's an extreme example. It's really not. Most people procrastinate until it's too late. This is why you have the statistic that 95% of Americans fail to retire by age 65, 95%. Only 5% retire successfully. Those are not the procrastinators. The 5% that do retire successfully begin investing at a relatively young age, in their 30s or 40s, which makes a huge difference compared to what most people do is they wait till they're 55, 60 before they really wake up and go, man, I got to stop procrastinating. I got to get going. We call this awakening the panic monster. Awakening the panic monster. And let me give credit to somebody real quick. I picked up that term from a guy named Tim Urban. Tim Urban. I suggest you get onto YouTube, search for Tim Urban, and watch his presentation on procrastination. Now, he's got several presentations, but check out the one on procrastination, and you'll hear a lot of what I say in what he says. He's hilarious. He's phenomenal. Tim Urban. It's a TED Talk on procrastination. So check that out after you finish watching this podcast. But let's talk about procrastination and why people do it. Many people do it for different reasons. But the number one reason is pleasure. People procrastinate because they prefer pleasure over work. But before we go into that one, let's talk about a couple others. One of the reasons, another big reason, not as big as pleasure, but one of the big reasons is flat out fear. People are afraid of what might happen. What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? They have fears about, and let's just talk about it in the real estate context. If you say, okay, 9 out of 10 millionaires in the U.S. used real estate. I'm going to use real estate. I want to build a portfolio of, say, 20 rent houses, or I want to passively invest in a couple thousand apartment units. What comes up when I say that? What comes up when you say that in your head? Usually some group of fears. Fears like, well, can I even qualify for 20 houses? Do I have the down payment for 20 houses? Am I going to be able to find 20 houses? Those are all little, we'll call them baby fears, because none of them are true. One thing you've got to understand is that the U.S. government has set up a program called Fannie Mae to give you 10 rent houses. People run around going, it's so hard to buy rent houses. Really? There's a government program specifically for you to buy 10 rent houses. They want you to do it, and they make it easy as pie. But once you get the 10 Fannie Mae loans, then you just switch to portfolio loans, and there's no limit to the number of those you can have. So that fear of, can I even buy 20 houses is false, but it doesn't matter. It paralyzes people, freezes people, and causes them to procrastinate. Secondary reason people procrastinate is they see themselves as perfectionists, and what they want to do is have everything perfect before they start. Here's the challenge with that. Things will never be perfect, even after you start. People think, if you got 20 rent houses, you're making 8-10 grand a month profit. You got no worries in the world. Everything's great, blah, blah, blah. No. Building wealth solves massive numbers of problems, but it also creates problems. In other words, when I was broke, I had broke people's problems. When I was wealthy, I had wealthy people problems. But there's still problems. In other words, nothing's ever going to be perfect. The other funny one for me is people who call themselves perfectionists. It's always hilarious to me because you can look at them and tell they're not perfectionists. I remember talking to a guy who was morbidly obese. He goes, man, I just have trouble taking action because I'm a perfectionist. What, are you trying to be perfectly round? You're not a perfectionist. Stop hiding behind that. Perfectionism is it's fake. It's fugazi. It's fake. It's not real. People hide behind it to keep from taking action when really it's probably the first thing we talked about, which is fear. They're just afraid. But the big one that I told you about just a minute ago is pleasure. We are naturally drawn to pleasure. And Tim Urban describes it like this. The way Tim describes it is if you want to get control of this, you have to pretend like there are three creatures in your head that control you. And they are, first, the rational thinker. Think of that as a little Einstein in your brain. You got a little Einstein in your brain, and it's the rational thinker, and it tries to be logical. It tries to weigh emotions and logic and make the right decision. That's the rational thinker. The second creature in your brain is the panic monster. I mentioned him earlier. The panic monster. The panic monster wakes up whenever there's a deadline. And then the third creature that's in your head is a thing called the instantaneous gratification monkey. Instantaneous gratification monkey. And what the instantaneous gratification monkey does is it throws pleasure at you whenever you're thinking about working. And it causes you to procrastinate because you chase the pleasure. Give you an example. Have you ever been given a project to do? Let's say that you're given 30 days to write a report. This could be high school, college, or work. You're given 30 days to write a report. What does the rational thinker in your head say? He says, man, we'll do a little bit of work every day and get this job done early. But on the 27th day, what do you realize? You haven't done shit. Nothing has happened. And who wakes up on the 27th day. The panic monster. And isn't it amazing that in 3 days you get done what you couldn't get done in 27 days? See, that panic monster is your buddy. The panic monster is what gets you to take action. Why didn't you take action the first 27 days? I'll give you 2 simple examples. Let's say you're at home. It's Sunday afternoon. It's day 5. They gave you the project. It's the 5th day. And you say to your spouse, honey, I'm going to go work on my report. So you head out of the kitchen into the living room. Your office is on the other side of the living room. But when you walk into the living room, the TV's on. And on TV is your favorite football team. And right as you walk into the room, they throw a touchdown pass. Are you going to make it to your office? You're not, are you? The reason is the instantaneous gratification monkey is going to drip dopamine. This is the feel-good drug, the love drug. If you're not familiar with dopamine, remember the last time you made love? That's dopamine in a big way. The good news is it's good for you. We're all addicted to it. But again, the good news is it's good for you. But you've got to understand that if you're on Facebook and you post something and somebody likes your post, guess what you get? Dopamine. The instantaneous gratification monkey drips dopamine. It makes you feel good. When you're watching a football game, your favorite team throws a touchdown pass. You jump out of your chair. Guess what that is? Dopamine. See, dopamine, the pleasure drug, is what the instantaneous gratification monkey uses to keep you from going to work. And in that case, it was the football game. So you walk into the living room, you're headed to your office, but you see the football game and you say, I'm just going to sit down and watch 3 or 4 downs, just a little bit. But 3 hours later, what do you realize? You haven't done anything. You're still watching the football game because that instantaneous gratification monkey is dripping dopamine, and it keeps you in that seat, keeps you watching that football game. So there's one example of how the dopamine monkey keeps you from doing your work. Let's look at a second one. And this one's the obvious one. It's Sunday afternoon again, day 14. You say, honey, I'm going to go work on my report. You walk out into the living room. Your wife steps out in lingerie. Are you going to go work on your report? No, you're not. You're not going to go work on your report. Again, the instantaneous gratification monkey, when you saw your wife in lingerie, dripped dopamine, and you chose the pleasure over the work. And this happens all the time with everybody. We all choose pleasure over work until there's a deadline. And this is the important lesson that Tim Urban is bringing up. A dream without a deadline will always remain a dream. A dream without a deadline will always remain a dream. I want you to think about this. If you're not in the financial position that you want to be in, and you're 45 plus, do you realize you've had 20 plus years, some of you 30 years, some of you 35, 40 years of work? You've worked for 20, 30, 40 years, and you're still not in the financial position you want to be in. Do you know why you're not in the financial position you want to be in? Because there's no deadline. Ask yourself this question. What is the deadline for getting wealthy? What is it? Are you supposed to be wealthy about 50? Is the deadline 60? Is the deadline 65? There's no deadline. So the panic monster has never woken up in you. What usually happens is the panic monster doesn't wake up in people until they turn 60. They wake up on that 60th birthday and they go, holy crap, I'm 60 and I'm not in the financial position I want to be in. Then the panic monster wakes up and they go take action. The vast majority of our top investors are 60 plus because the panic monster woke up and they finally started taking action. See, what you've got to do to get yourself to take action on your financial goals is you've got to make up a deadline. You got to fake it because there is no deadline. There's no expiration date on your foot. You don't know when you're going to die. You don't know how long you're going to live. And you don't take action. You procrastinate and put it off. What you've got to do is set a fake deadline. One of the things that I do with my clients is when they join and they hire me, I sit down with them and we look at their present financial position, their goal financial position, and we set a deadline. It's fake, but it works. Let me give you an example of a fake deadline. When I was 27, I went to work one day and they cut my pay by 20 grand a year. And what it did was it motivated me to learn how to invest in real estate so I'd never have to have a job again, and that couldn't happen to me again. I thought 30 was old. I literally thought 30 was old. So what I said to myself was, I've got to be rich by 30. I've got to be rich by 30. Fake deadline. Is 30 old? No, it's a fake deadline. But it didn't matter. It did not matter. Guess what happened? By 30, I was financially independent. I really wasn't rich, but I was financially independent. The income from my real estate allowed me to live a very high quality of lifestyle. But if I hadn't had that fake deadline, would I have ever achieved it? I'm going to suggest no. I would have kept putting it off, putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. See, you've got to get a deadline. Now, let's talk about goal setting for a second. Have you ever written down your goals? If you have, and you followed the standard MO, method of operation, you're going to put a deadline on each of your goals. If you don't put that deadline, those goals will never come true in all probability. You got to set a deadline. So my lesson out of this, and I know I've rambled a little bit, but the takeaway is this. You are a procrastinator. You got to look yourself in the mirror and go, man, I'm a procrastinator. I'm putting stuff off. Why is that okay? Because everybody has to look in the mirror and say that, because we all do it. Everybody does it. So admit you're a procrastinator. Recognize that you don't have proper deadlines. Recognize that you don't have proper deadlines. And the third takeaway, be aware of dopamine. Be aware of dopamine, or the instantaneous gratification monkey. Whenever you're working on a project, such as becoming financially independent, watch out that dopamine monkey doesn't keep you from working on your goals by getting you to choose pleasure instead of the work. The work is what's going to get you there. And eventually, you've got to start associating pleasure to that type of work. I know a guy that loves to cold call. Now, I dislike cold calling. I don't hate it. I dislike cold calling to find real estate deals. This guy loves it. He's trained himself to the point that the instantaneous gratification monkey drips dopamine every time he thinks about cold calling. Why? Because he has, well, we discussed it before, a deadline. The kid's 22 and he has $5 million worth of real estate. He's 22. What are you doing with your life? You know, do you think that kid's a procrastinator? It's a trick question. He is, because everybody is. But what he's done is he has set proper deadlines. Like the next thing he's going to do is let me help him buy a 100-unit apartment complex. And that's his path. And he's got a deadline for that. Bottom line, you got to have a deadline. got to have a deadline for everything you want out of life, even if it's a fake deadline. So stop procrastinating, take action, start building wealth for yourself and your family today. Don't put it off to your 60. And get some encouragement. Get some support. Sorry to give you a sales pitch for Total Wealth Academy, but that's what we're here for. Our mentors and wealth coaches actually walk people through the real estate investing process to make sure they don't make the beginner mistakes. And they encourage you, they educate you. It's very effective. And we even help you set deadlines. So if you're interested in that, there's a link below to come to our free sample class so you can check everything out before you join. But that's my little dissertation on procrastination. Again, be sure to go search YouTube for Tim Urban, and watch his presentation on procrastination. Again, it's hilarious. He's got cool graphics. He's a cool guy. It's just a fun little video. All right. Thank you for watching the Total Wealth Academy video podcast. Remember, you can find our video podcast and our radio show podcast at TotalWealthAcademy.com. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.